Exploring Alaska solo in the winter? People thought I was crazy.
And maybe I was.
I have 6 full nights in Alaska to locate the Northern Lights.
But trips like this are expensive. Is it worth it? That's what we're going to answer. I tracked every dollar so I could break it down for this video. I'll present the facts, you be the judge. Before leaving, I did tons of research and guessed that this trip would cost me about $3,000. We'll analyze each part, but you can use the timestamps to navigate to the section of interest to you. Let's jump right into the most expensive category of my trip, transportation. Flights will vary greatly depending on your starting point and dates you choose. However, this is how it worked out in my scenario. For this trip, I found that Google Flights came out cheaper on tickets from Charleston, South Carolina to Fairbanks, Alaska. Part of my reason for choosing Fairbanks was affordable tickets, along with its excellent reviews as one of the most consistent places to see the Northern Lights. You can actually find similar ticket prices to Anchorage, Alaska's largest city on the southern coast. There are actually several reasons why Fairbanks is a better Northern Lights destination, but I'll cover that in more depth in the next video. I booked 4 months in advance in hopes of securing the best deal, but ultimately this did not help as I saw prices lower at about a month and a half out. Flight cost? $537. A checked bag both ways adds another $35 each way. But if your bag gets delayed on the way back, it's free. I am all about having my own wheels, so I booked an all-wheel drive SUV through Priceline, which you can find linked in the description. Before booking, however, I would advise that you call the rental company direct if possible to check if they put actual snow tires on their vehicles, not all-weather tires. Alaska Auto Rental fit the bill.
One of the difficulties of the north that it just takes a lot longer to get prepared and go anywhere. So I'm having problems with my windshield wipers right now.
My minimal winter weather driving experience was definitely tested when a snowstorm set in. The roads in Fairbanks are plowed often, but can become covered in snow quicker since they prefer not to spread much salt. I found the roads around Anchorage had little snow on them. A Chevy Equinox all-wheel drive SUV cost $487 for a week. However, you also have to factor in gas usage. First, gas prices were noticeably more expensive, roughly 70 cents a gallon more than South Carolina. Secondly, I like to cover a lot of territory. Although I was based out of Fairbanks, I explored a bit south of Girdwood, closer to 8 hours away. While fuel is a factor, driving is still a relatively cheap way to see Alaska's beauty. The road into Denali National Park is closed in the winter, but that doesn't stop travelers from seeing the incredible mountains on both sides of the highway between Fairbanks and Anchorage. I also got to see 7 moose along the way. Below Anchorage, you begin driving along the Turnagain Arm, where snowy peaks plunge into an ice-covered bay. While I did not have enough time to explore the Kenai Peninsula, I would definitely recommend it, even in the winter. Sub-zero temperatures also impact fuel economy. At negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit and below, the fuel gauge dropped considerably faster. The final cost for fuel? $254. A final smaller category under travel expenses had to be my car driving to the airport and the parking there, which I only paid about $69 total, which isn't bad. The total cost for transportation? $1,382. The next highest spending came in the lodging category. I spent 4 nights in Fairbanks, 2 in Anchorage, and then 1 more back in Fairbanks, the same house. It averaged out to about $66 a night if you stay 2 or more nights. The 7-night total? $474. However, lodging expenses are going to vary greatly depending on your preferences. As a solo budget traveler, I didn't mind sharing spaces as long as I had my own room. However, if you want a house with no one else there, you're going to spend significantly more. How much should you budget for travel experiences in Alaska? Here are a few questions to consider. Would you rather have someone else with experience take care of lining up the schedule and the gear? Are you on a budget? Are you an experienced traveler used to navigating unfamiliar territory? And do you like to figure things out on your own and get off the beaten path? Personally, I have experience traveling on my own and prefer to take in the natural settings without the crowds if possible. However, I was also on a budget. Here are a few of the activities I did. I also include a recommendation for one that I didn't get to do. At just $15, the World Ice Art Championships in Fairbanks are a must-see at night. The event ran from mid-February to the end of March in 2026. Fairbanks is acclaimed to have some of the best clear, deep ice in all the world. Depending on when you visit, you might even see the artists at work. I still enjoyed this winter wonderland even though the work had ceased for that day. Chena Hot Springs is a very touristy spot. However, I had some time my last day and decided to go check it out. The negative 20-degree weather outside made the hot water feel amazing, like an extended sauna. There was even a section where I wasn't going to stay too long because it was that hot. The cost for this? $25. One factor to keep in mind though is that the desolate ride to Chena Hot Springs is going to take over an hour and a quarter to drive. If you prefer to be active, as I do, then you should definitely consider skiing in Alaska.
Trying Nordic skiing out for the first time here at Birch Creek.
I rented skis, boots, and poles from Trax Outdoor Center in Fairbanks from Saturday afternoon until Monday morning when I returned them. The cost for this, $55.
There are ski spots in Fairbanks, such as the Birch Hill Recreation Area and the University of Alaska Fairbanks Trail, that offer nicely groomed trails. There weren't many people out when I was there.
I would also recommend sticking to the trails unless you have experience and the right type of skis to get off into the powder. I learned that the hard way. One of the experiences I knew I had to do was downhill skiing at Aleyaska Resort. It's southeast of Anchorage and widely considered to be the best skiing in Alaska.
That's beautiful and a good time.
It offers 3,200 feet of vertical drop, plus panoramic views of the Turnagain Arm and the mountains that plunge into the sea there, causing many to consider this one of the most scenic ski slopes in the US. Another bonus is that I got many runs in without any waiting in line at the main lift. If you're doing a ski rental, the price is pretty steep, but $187 was worth it for me. My favorite day on the trip was when I got to ski at Aleyaska and then that same night went out and saw the northern lights. Most people pay $325 a night for a guided Aurora tour. I had 6 nights there, so that's roughly $1,950 if you went out every single night on a tour. However, I chose to head out on my own, armed with my research, a wide-angle lens, and plenty of winter gear. I'll tell you everything about how I pulled that off, but that's a separate video. My total cost for paid experiences, $282. One more activity I wish I would have done is snowmobiling. Rentals start at $225 a day around Fairbanks. But if you'd rather try dog sledding, my research showed that it costs roughly $175 for an hour. Here are a few additional tips for planning your activities. One factor to keep in mind is the daylight. At the winter solstice, Fairbanks receives less than 4 hours of daylight. However, at the end of February, I had close to 10 hours of daylight to work with. I'm also a big proponent of doing your research ahead of time while you have internet access. That being said, self-service was actually more readily available than I expected. Most of the time, it wasn't an issue. However, there can still be dead spots in remote areas. Plus, it's good to know the potential risks, such as avalanches, before you go out on your own. Let's talk about food. This is a category that can vary widely depending on your preferences and budget. If you want to try local foods such as salmon and reindeer, you're going to see the numbers a lot higher. Since I was alone, I went very basic: fast food and groceries. And yes, Alaska conveniently has Walmarts.
Food prices seem similar to my area, but I was told meats cost considerably more.
If you have access to a kitchen and don't mind a little food prep, this is where I saved a lot of money. So my total food spending on this trip, $150. Alaska can be a harsh environment. Proper winter clothing is a must for your enjoyment and safety when exploring in the winter. Be warned that frostbite can set in quickly in windy, sub-zero temperatures. This was my first sub-zero experience. Even though I planned ahead, it was still a shock.
I managed to get a mild yet painful frostbite on my exposed fingers the very first night. My fingers have stopped working, my phone has stopped working almost, very low battery. Got the GoPro warmed up finally.
Shooting the auroras at negative 42 degrees Fahrenheit is no joke. If you prefer to keep planning simple, there are lots of rental options available for winter layers. Winter boots, for example, run about $143 for a week. I priced it. I was fortunate to have a lot of winter gear already, including merino wool socks, which I'll link below in the description. This kept my costs from being as high. You should also buy toe warmers at Walmart if you're planning on being outside for an extended period of time while viewing the northern lights. Since I came to photograph the auroras, I bought winter gloves that allow the pointer finger and the thumb to fold back. This allowed me to feel the camera buttons. Regarding camera gear, that's outside the scope of this video, so I didn't count any of the costs for that since it's stuff I'll use on other trips. Even with just a late model phone though, you can capture some really crisp shots of the winter landscapes. My final cost for gear, $129. Souvenirs are a great way to remember the trip long after the exploration is over. Although there are options for souvenirs in Anchorage and Fairbanks, I chose to go online instead and ended up buying this shirt and a water bottle sticker for about $16 total. By the way, if you have questions about something I mentioned or something that I didn't cover, please feel free to drop me a comment below. Let's get into the final cost. I mentioned earlier that I thought it would be about $3,000, but I was pleasantly surprised. The total, $2,433 for 7 days in Alaska solo, Northern Lights included. If you divide that out among the 7 full days that I was actually in Alaska, it comes out to about $348 a day. In comparison to my Iceland trip, it gave me far more wilderness with minimal crowds. Was it worth it? Definitely. The footage answers better than I can. Northern Lights, Ice Cave, Alaskan Winter, Solo. The story of how I found the Aurora and explored without spending $1 on tours, that video is coming. I'm Wyatt Bang with Bang Up Media, hoping you subscribe so you don't miss the rest of what happened in America's last frontier.